Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you, and my special guest for today is Sheyla Ravelo Perez, who is Miss Earth Cuba. I'll just read out her bio so you get to know everything about Sheyla, or maybe not everything, but a lot. Sheyla Ravelo Perez was born in San Antonio de los Baños, Cuba, but immigrated to the United States when she was 4 years old. She's a first generation college student and attends the University of Florida, a top five ranked public university, where she is set to graduate with honors this December. That's not far away. An environmental activist, Sheyla has partnered with several organizations to promote her platform of sustainability, conservation, and social responsibility. She is a global cleanup ambassador for the international environmental organization Earth Day, as well as a brand ambassador for Queenly, an online formal wear marketplace that promotes sustainable fashion consumption. In her free time, what little she has of it, she loves dancing, solving jigsaw puzzles, and exploring the great outdoors. And then you can get to know Sheyla and stay updated on her journey to the Miss Earth crown by following her on Instagram at instagram.com. Obviously, Sheyla Ravelo Perez. You can see that in her underneath her photo there. Sheyla, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm lovely. How are you, Adrian?
I'm doing very well. Out of that bio, I mean, you're about to graduate with honors. At the same time, almost at the same time as you'll be overseas competing for Cuba in Miss Earth. So, is everything under control, or is everything slightly manic? Bit of both.
No, everything is under control, which none of it is contributed to me. Everything is under control. I have a wonderful team behind me, both on the pageant side with everyone that is on my team, as well as at the university side. My department is backing me 100%. This last semester is actually a full-time internship, and so my internship site is also working with me and being super flexible as well. So I'll be finished with my, they let me start early, so I'll be finished with my internship. Then I ship off to Miss Earth the following week, and then when I get back, I walk the stage.
Oh wow! Whereabouts are you doing your internship?
Here, it's Miners Dermatology in Hollywood, Florida. So they are a very large dermatological practice. We cover everything from traditional medical dermatology to Mohs to some plastics procedures to lasers to about everything you could think of having to do with the skin.
Wow. Okay. Are you enjoying your internship so far? Sounds pretty hands-on.
I am. Recently, I've just started assisting on surgeries, and so that's been super exciting. And I'm learning so much. And the entire staff there, the entire team has been really incredible, and they've just been so patient with me and so understanding and so supportive.
Perfect. Guys, I can see a bunch of you tuned in. So if you have any questions for Sheyla, put them in the comments and I will pass them on. The other thing that struck me there, Sheyla, was the jigsaw puzzles. That's unusual. Can you tell me more about your love for jigsaw puzzles? Are we talking like the little ones, or are we talking the big ones? I look at them, I don't have the patience for it, but
No, baby. As big a jigsaw puzzle as we can get our hands on, that is the ideal. I do them with my older sister. We kind of have like a family puzzle building team, but we put a really weird restriction on ourselves that my mom really hates clutter. And so if we do a puzzle, it can't be like left out for days, worked on increments at a time. We are pulling an all nighter. We are finishing this in one go. We don't care how long it takes. We're finishing it. So we're talking 2,000. We've done a few 3,000 ones, and we're working our way up to. Have you seen? It's like a really big one, but it's just completely blank. It's like expert
no,
level difficult. We have our sights set on it. We're training.
that would be terrible. What? It's completely blank, so you can't put together the photo. What? It's just like white or black
No,
or
it's just white. So I don't look at the photo anyway. I go by the shape. That's how I do my searching. So depending on the process.
how long would it take you to do like a 2000? So this expert level one that doesn't have a photo, how long do you think it would take you and your sister to do?
I mean, we won't know until we try. You know, definitely at least one full night, provided that we don't hate each other by the end of it. But definitely quite a few hours, I imagine. There's really no picture on the box to reference or anything else to kind of use as a crutch. So if we like pull it together and we train our hardest within the next year, I'm thinking we could maybe get it done in 15 hours. It's a generous estimate, but we'll see.
Wow. Okay, so I assume you do it because you enjoy it,
We
not
do.
because someone's holding you at gunpoint and forcing you to do it. So what is it about jigsaw puzzles that you love?
I like the problem solving. I like it. It's relaxing to focus on one kind of repetitive, specific task. And like I said, the whole family gets involved. So it is really just me and my sister. And if we have our cousins over, my entire family is very close. And so we spend holidays together. They'll just stop by. So we'll go. My parents will kind of walk by and then like pick up a piece, put it down. And it's nice. It's spending time together and unplugging and just, of course, we're
Yeah.
talking around the puzzle. There's snacks, there's movie playing. So it's a good time all around.
Okay. As a fellow problem solver, I do love solving problems. I haven't done many puzzles, but what I would start with is, and I'll get your opinion on this, I would start with the corner pieces and then go with the edges and then work my way from there. How would you do that? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I completely off base? Fill me in here.
Solid strategy. Solid strategy. For
Okay.
me, we always do that border first, just so we can
Yeah.
get those out of the mix. And then from there, I like to go by piece, like images in the puzzle. So I don't really like the collage ones. I like when it's more like it's a painting that's been turned into a puzzle. And then say if there's like a really nice tree or if there's an animal, then I'll focus on the animal and I'll collect pieces that look like it's part of it. And then I'll go by like specific items in the puzzle. And then we just fill in the rest.
Is there ever a conflict when you work with someone else on the puzzle and they have a completely haphazard way of doing it? Because I have to say, I feel that would set me off. If I had my way of doing it and someone just picked up a piece and went, oh, I think it goes there, that would actually annoy me. Are you like that, or you're pretty easy as it comes?
No, I mean, all help is welcome and appreciated. They mean well. And the puzzle building team, I will say, is very exclusive. I mean, there's an extensive tryout process. Selections, cuts are made at every level, just like pageantry. So by the time we get to our final starting team, it's all hands on deck, expert level. So we don't wind up with too many of those.
Well, Miss Earth does have a talent section. Would you do puzzle solving? Is that possible that you could do puzzle solving as your talent section?
You know what? I didn't think of that, but that would be incredible. Maybe that's my new party trick. I will be dancing for the talent section though.
That's yeah, that's probably more of a normal, usual, expected one. Speaking of pageants, because you are Miss Earth Cuba, why don't we start with the easy question, which is how you got involved in pageantry to begin with? Because as I understand it, this is not your first pageant.
Of course. So I really got involved because of my older sister. She's 5 years older than me. And of course, being my only sibling, I just grew up admiring her and looking up to her in every way. She pretty randomly one day decided that she was going to do our local pageant. Once we immigrated from Cuba, we settled in Lake Placid, Florida, a very small town in Central Florida. And so there happened to be a local pageant, and she decided it was something she wanted to try, and she won on her first go. And so I tagged along to all of her events for that following year and just got to see the impact she made. And so I was like, okay, when I'm old enough, I'm going to be just like Belly. I'm going to do the same pageant. And I did. And I fell in love with it. And I've just been running with it ever since.
Your sister won on her very first attempt.
Oh, she's incredible. Yeah. She
That's
has since
setting the
retired.
bar.
She has since retired. She set the bar high. I did not win on my first attempt. It took me a few tries. But yeah, just seeing her do it, I saw how much fun she had. I got to tag along, like I said, to all of the events. And so I was like almost like a little title holder too. And I just knew it was something I wanted to do.
So, what got you hooked? Because everyone who suffers from the pageant bug is suffering from it for different reasons, whether it's a competition, the interview, the glitz, the glam, the travel. So, what parts of it specifically got you hooked?
I think, which has to be maybe the most boring answer, but I really think it's just having that long term set goal and
Hmm.
kind of constantly having something to work towards. Um, Something I've always heard is that you don't lose yourself in this process, you find yourself because you're constantly revisiting what are the things that I like, getting to know yourself so that you can better answer questions, reinventing your style. And so I think I'm obsessed with that part of the process of this, that constant growth and constant analyzing, fixing, and improving.
Well, on that note of self improvement, which is a fairly common thread, but I think everyone's journey is slightly different, is unique. So, I mean, obviously, you seem to speak well. You're representing Cuba at Miss Earth, so we're going to assume that your fashion sense is on point. How much of that was, Shayla before pageants, and how much of that has been your growth journey through pageants?
I'd say that pageants introduced me since I started them so young. I started at, I don't know if I mentioned it, around 12 or 11 years old.
Hmm.
I think pageantry introduced me to the opportunities that then got me to where I am now. So on the terms of public speaking, I was a competitive public speaker pretty much all throughout my teenage years.
Yeah.
And so pageantry introduced me to aspects of that and kind of got my foot in the door. And then I took off running. And then, of course, with the fashion, got my first large sparkly dress and was hooked ever since. And so it got me more comfortable with exploring different aspects of myself. And I think if nothing else, pageantry gets you comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting out of your
Mm.
comfort zone.
Well, that's very, very true. You got to be used to dealing with stress. Eat it for breakfast. You mentioned competitive public speaking. That's unusual because it might have changed recently, but the biggest fear, more so than death, is public speaking. So, did you go into public speaking because you were afraid of it, or are you one of those unusual types, such as myself, who actually enjoys public speaking?
I guess unusual type. I guess I'll be lumped into that group. I started it as an extension of a debate. So I
Yeah.
was a debate kid at my high school. I started the debate program. And so I was president. I started the club and then I was president of that club. And it was a way of expanding and kind of building my skill set in that area. And I did it for scholarships. And so that was a big
Oh,
motivating
okay.
factor. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you about debating because it's fascinating to me, and obviously Miss Earth has a strong environmental advocacy, and it seems to me what's missing a lot of the time is actually a proper debate. There seems to be a lot of people yelling at each other, but not actually listening and responding to the other side's argument. So, is that something that you feel? Yes, we could use a good debate. Is that a skill set that you feel is not being utilized enough in society? Because from my point of view, you don't get anywhere unless you actually have a constructive debate.
Of course. I absolutely do that. Think that's something that we can benefit from as a society in all aspects, not even just on the grounds of environmental policy or
Mm,
environmental causes, but I think we would benefit from good constructive debate. I think debate has kind of a negative connotation nowadays in that it seems like arguing or it's kind of going back and forth and rebuttaling one's point, but you really have to listen and absorb what the other person is saying. But in order to do that, we have to make sure that when we're debating, instead of just trying to win our opponent or conquer our opponent, our goal should instead be to make them understand our point of view. And the way we do that is not by throwing out large words or trying to seem as smart as possible or smarter than they are. It is by presenting information in a way that is clear, logical, and easy to follow so that everyone can have access to the required knowledge to understand the subject and really form an opinion on it.
Is debating, as in competitive debating, or even starting up a debating club, is that still a big thing over in the US? Because from memory, over here in Australia, which is where I'm from, debating is not such a huge thing. It still exists, but it's not pushed. Is it a bigger thing in the US, particularly in the college and the school system?
I'd say it's more of a niche interest. It's definitely
Right.
not as big as something like a dance team or
Mm.
sports, which I was also involved with. It's maybe, I'd say, akin to in volunteer groups or maybe advocacy clubs that may be formed at schools, things like chess club. So it's definitely the people who are into it die hard for it and they are incredibly into it and they'll do several competitions a year. For me, I always knew I had like a season. I knew it was competition after competition after competition pretty much until I got eliminated. And so I would like to see it be more widespread because I think no matter what, it's something that everyone could benefit from, kind of getting over that fear of public speaking and learning how to articulate your points clearly so that when you go out into the corporate world, you're able to stand
Yeah.
your ground.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you mentioned that you kept going until you were eliminated. So, are you a competitive person? I mean, I love the fact that you've competed previously, even if it's in another field, because I feel competition, whether it's sports or debating or pageantry, one of the big lessons you have to learn is how to lose and how to lose with grace. So, would you consider yourself a competitive person in general?
I definitely do. It's been a repetitive theme in my life. First, starting with sports, I pretty much my first love was swimming, and then I took off from there. And so, all throughout my teenage years, I actually did 5 varsity sports. So, I dual sported in the fall and the winter seasons. And so, I was a year round athlete. And then, on top of that, I also did the debate and the public speaking. And then, I got really into pageantry. So, it does seem to be a repetitive theme in my life. Although, I will say the competition aspect of it is more internal for me. It's
Mhm.
seeing if I can beat my best time. It's seeing that if I can improve in a certain skill set, if I can get better at something rather than if I can beat another opponent. That motivation was always very internal for me.
So you're competing against the best that you could be,
Mhm.
rather than actually competing against the external. What, out of interest, what sports did you compete in?
Yes, it was swimming, cross country, wrestling, weightlifting, and track and field.
Wrestling. This is okay. So this is Greco-Roman wrestling, not WWE type
Yeah,
wrestling. I'm assuming
yeah.
wrestling. Tell me more about wrestling. This is what I love when I've interviewed as many pageant queens as I have, and you're 200 and something, and I've interviewed another 100 over that. But I love finding someone who's done something that I've never heard of before. I've heard of wrestling, but only with men. Female wrestling, I didn't actually know. I'm ashamed or embarrassed to say I didn't know that was a thing. Tell me more about wrestling.
Of course. So it was Greco-Roman style wrestling, more specifically what's called folk style wrestling, which just has certain rules pertaining to certain moves that you can do or that you can't do. And so I was on the wrestling team at my school. We did not have a women's team, and so it was technically a unisex team. Our coach was very supportive of it. There were two other women on my team, both of which actually still very close with to this day. That did, however, mean since there were many other women in the sport, it is up and coming though. I would wrestle men that were in my weight class. Now,
Wow.
I was not good at wrestling. I will tell you that right now. Do not be that impressed. Technically, with the techniques of it, I was good. I was a
Mhm.
hardworking athlete. I was in shape. I was doing all the things. I am not an aggressive person by nature, and I learned that very quickly when I joined the sport. It was a running joke on the team. My teammates loved me for it, but I would apologize to opponents mid match. It was not the sport for me, but I gave it a good shot. I tried it. Yeah, no, better at the other ones though.
I
The community
probably
of it, but I wasn't great at it.
I probably wouldn't suggest doing boxing or UFC then, because wrestling you pin someone, correct? Whereas the other ones you literally have to knock someone out and draw blood. I have to ask though. So there wasn't really a women's team; there was a unisex team. I assume you knew that you were going to have to compete against men. Me as a tennis coach and a tennis player, I worked almost exclusively with young women in high school. I have to say, 99% of them would go, no, I'm never giving wrestling a go. It's not, an attractive sport. It's too based on strength, and then you want me to like wrestle with men? Absolutely not. So why did you decide to go for it? I'm fascinated.
I wish I had a more inspirational answer for you, but really it just seemed fun. Wrestling was, I believe, the last sport I picked up of those five. And by that point, it was the same coach from my swim team. And a lot
Right.
of the athletes at my school, we all knew each other. A lot of us would do the multiple sports together. And so it just always seemed like a good time. Wrestling against men was never something that put me off to it, particularly because I was really close with the male athletes at my school as well. And
Yeah.
they were always my teammates and my coaches, I really have to credit it to them because now that you asked that question, I realize I never gave that worry or I never had that second thought about it because they made me
Yeah.
feel so comfortable right from the get go. And I never felt less than. I always felt safe and comfortable and just, I had all the fun. It was like any other sport.
So you would apologize to your opponents mid-match. When you wrestled men, did they ever apologize to you? Were they ever put off by the fact that they were wrestling a woman?
Yes, I did get that pushback came from other schools. So it wasn't within the team. It
Yeah.
definitely came externally, though. There were men that would be purposely more aggressive, particularly if that match was going in my favor. They would get more
Yeah.
aggressive or maybe get frustrated. Um, so that could be a bit difficult at times, or sometimes we get kind of comments or just uncomfortable behavior from wrestlers on another team or even their coaches or their administration. And so you really, I think when you put yourself in a situation where you're pushing the bounds of what's considered acceptable in society, you have to be comfortable and ready to accept and challenge the pushback that comes along with it. And so that was something I was prepared for going into it, but I knew I had my entire team and my coaches standing behind me. So I never once felt unsafe or uncomfortable.
Well, you got some pushback from that from the outside. Obviously, with pageantry, there's some pushback as well. There are some people who have particular views on pageantry, and women in general. A lot of the time, you're dealing with pushback. For a lot of people, that's very scary, and I can completely understand that, particularly when you get like trolled on the internet by people who don't know you. You seem to be, I wouldn't say you enjoy it, but you do seem to be comfortable dealing with it. Where did that come from? Because that's obviously a hugely important skill to have in this day and age.
Of course. I think it just comes from being comfortable with yourself. If you know who you are and you know what you stand for and you're comfortable with yourself, then I don't think the rest phases you.
Mm,
Everyone is going to have different opinions. And of course, particularly with pageantry, different women find different activities empowering. I happen to
yeah,
find pageantry empowering, and I've always felt that way since I was young, but some women don't, and that's entirely okay. We don't all have to have the same opinion. And if
yeah.
they don't find this particular sector of pageantry or this industry appealing, then that's absolutely fine. And they're absolutely entitled to that opinion.
I started at the beginning by saying, just looking at your bio, that you probably didn't have a lot of free time. Having now spoken to you a bit, I'm fairly convinced that you don't have much free time. How do you have much free time? How do you manage your time? What do you do in your free time?
Okay. I at this point in time, because it does wax and wane, I do not have much free time. So with
Yeah.
that full-time internship the last semester of college, I have been working in the ballpark of minimum 40, but all the way up to 60-hour work weeks.
Okay.
Yes. In addition to that, of course, all of the pageant prep that goes into preparing for one of the
Mm,
largest international competitions, in addition to the physical preparation of it, and just daily activities of life. And
yeah.
so I will say the key to time management is to just find a system that works for you. And for me, that is writing everything down, having everything in front of me so I can look at it and then I can physically check it off. So that's using Google Notes on the virtual side, having a monthly Google Calendar, also having a physical in person monthly, weekly, and daily planner that I go through religiously to make sure I'm not losing track of anything, checking emails regularly, and just having a time set aside at the start of my day to just go through, see what it is that I have to do, and just kind of brain dump. That way I
Mm.
can get it out of my head and I don't have to be anxious about it, worrying about it throughout the day because I have a list that I can physically refer back to.
I want to get onto your advocacy for Miss Earth, but just before I ask that, do you see yourself working for someone else in a 9 to 5, or are you thinking about setting up something more entrepreneurial and working for yourself?
That's still something I'm trying to figure out for myself now. Going through my internship, I'm learning a lot, not just about medicine and dermatology, the specialty, but also about
Mm,
what it is that I want out of a career, how I like to practice, what I think makes it for a good business. And so while that's still something I'm trying to figure out, I think moving forward, even after the pageant, regardless of what happens, I do think I want to stay in the environmental sector for a while longer.
okay. So, speaking of the pageant, tell the people watching or the people listening after the fact more about your environmental advocacy and what it means to you.
Of course. So my environmental advocacy is essentially twofold going into the pageant. On one side, I advocate for cleanups as one of the easiest and most accessible ways for us to make a difference and reduce pollution from getting into our oceans and affecting our wildlife and our waterways. I also advocate for sustainable fashion. A lot of people don't realize that the fashion industry, particularly with the rise of micro trends or trends that are only really existing for a short period of time before being discarded and moved on to something
Mm,
new, have really caused an uptick in pollution and just wasteful behavior, given that a lot of these days our fabrics are synthetic, essentially being made of microplastics. And that all goes back into those microplastics ending up in our waterways and polluting our oceans. And so I partnered with both the Great Global Cleanup sector of Earth Day, the organization, as well as Queenly to kind of fortify these charges and give me the platform to where I can make an impactful change. I first got into my environmental advocacy a few years ago. I was raised on a farm, and so I grew up outdoors playing barefoot outdoors, climbing trees. And so it was always something that I loved, but I started to really see the effects, particularly through my debate career, as we would
mm,
debate policies, environmental policy changes, and how climate change should be addressed, and sometimes even the existence of a climate crisis. And so I think things really started to pick up for me once I started college. I heavily focused on chemistry in college. It is not my major, but it is one of the subjects I have studied most, and I actually help
Mhm.
teach it at the University of Florida as a teaching assistant. I learning about fuel cells, learning about rechargeable fuel cells, hydrogen fuel cells, biodiesel, and the sustainability of polymers. I actually put together a climate change policy and proposed it to one of my classes in a speech. And then things kind of set off for me. I was kind of pulled aside by my professor and told that,
Mhm.
this is something that you want to do. You could maybe go far with it. And from there, things just picked up. And of course, even now, partnering with those two big organizations to really embolden and put those two acts at the forefront of my advocacy, it's snowballing, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds really exciting. I had no idea you put together a policy or maybe a mock policy. I don't
Mhm.
quite know how you put it. How was the give us an idea as to the general overview of what the policy was and how you feel was received.
For sure. So I think it was received quite positively. Of course, my class was very supportive, and my professor was also very supportive. What I put at the forefront of my policy was essentially renewable energy resources and implementing them as a wide scale primary energy source rather than just supplementary, as it's been done
Hmm.
for years now. But the big difference in the policy that I drafted was that instead of focusing primarily on solar power, although it was included, I really pushed for the implementation of hydrogen fuel cells as a fuel source for motor vehicles. So the hydrogen fuel cell is a lesser known and less popular form of battery. And essentially, the input can either be pure water, although it would have to go
Hmm.
through an extra chemical process to split the hydrogen from the oxygen, or it can be hydrogen gas. And with that hydrogen gas, it goes through the fuel cell, and essentially the output, the waste product, is just pure clean water.
Yeah.
And it provides quite a great deal of energy. And this isn't, groundbreaking technology that we've never seen before, that we don't already have tangible at our fingertips. This is used on the space station, and that is how they get water while they're up there. The astronauts are up there for months at a time. That water that comes out of the hydrogen fuel cells is what provides the drinking water for our astronauts. And so not only would this address the energy crisis as we're
Mhm.
quickly running out of fossil fuels, this would also address the issue of our depleting aquifer systems, particularly in Florida, but across the world, as
Yeah.
well as just desertification across the world and access to, or lack of access, I should say, to clean drinking water.
This is all fascinating to me. I majored, one of my majors in high school was chemistry,
Mhm.
and that exact splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen. I still remember doing the pop test. I don't know if you guys did that, but you have the hydrogen and you test for the presence of hydrogen with a lit sort of splint, put it in there, and then the hydrogen pops. The big question that I thought was, I don't know if this has been since been resolved, but obviously hydrogen is extremely flammable, combustible. The Hindenburg disaster was that blimp was filled with hydrogen, and then it wasn't quite done right, and the whole thing exploded. So, how far has the technology come in terms of making sure that a hydrogen fuel cell is safe, relatively? I mean, obviously, if a normal car with fuel, that's flammable as well. But in terms of the safety of hydrogen, how far has that technology come?
I think it's come quite a ways. Like I said, the technology is currently used on our space station, and so
Mm,
we found a way to make it safer, of course. Now, as far as widespread implementation of the hydrogen fuel cell as our main energy source, I do not know that we're there yet.
yeah.
But I think slowly implementing it through trial and error, maybe running more lab tests in a controlled environment to get it to that point where it's safer, could be the answer. I don't know that I ever see it being our primary or sole source of energy anywhere in the world, but I do think alongside other energy sources like solar power, wind power, and water power, it could be a very, very valuable addition to our set.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it burns completely clean, doesn't it? Because the only output is
Water,
water. There's
clean
no
water,
carbon in it. Yeah.
clean
So
water.
you could potentially put water in. I mean, somewhere the hydrogen and oxygen need to be split, but whether that's done in a facility or done in the car, I don't know. But then the only output is water. So there's literally no carbon.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. And so that's why when it's used on the space station, the output of the
Mm,
water from those hydrogen fuel cells, it's what is used as the source for
yeah.
drinking water for the astronauts. The only thing with the input being pure water that's starting, is that energy process to split water isn't very chemically favorable. And so it is quite
Yeah.
difficult, or there's like an energy deficit that needs to be made up with another source. But if you start with hydrogen gas, then
Mm.
it is a relatively energetically favorable process. And then, of
Wow.
course, the issue becomes the combustibility. But like we've already said, gasoline and our fossil fuel
Mm.
energy sources are also very combustible.
Yeah, I had no idea we'd come that far. That was on the space station. That's fascinating to me. I mean, you touched on fashion trends. I don't know whether they're called micro trends or fashion trends, fast fashion. Can we speak a little bit about obviously on TikTok, especially since the pandemic, there's been a huge, as you said, uptick in fashion trends because what people tend to do is get a fashion haul. Tends to be from a very cheap place because people are looking for a bargain, which I can understand because a lot of people are struggling financially. And then these influencers encourage, obviously, young women, mainly that's the audience I've been looking at, young women to go and buy from these places that are producing, let's say, disposable fashion, maybe not in the most environmentally safe ways. But then on the other hand, that's what these influencers do. That's how some of them make their money. Where do you see the balance with that, where people, young people especially, want to be seen to jump on a trend and be super fashionable, yet that trend could be very detrimental in the long term to the earth?
Sure. I don't think it's necessarily the trends or the presence of influencers that are the issue in this scenario. I think it's more so that behavior of like consuming or constantly consuming the trends and then being
Mm,
rid of them so quickly. So the problem isn't that something is new or trendy and everyone rushes out to get it. It's that they try it and they maybe don't like it, but because it's what's trendy, they continue to wear it. And then
yeah,
eventually, once they finally, the trend moves on, it's discarded. And so I would really encourage everyone, because I know, particularly with fast fashion sites or fast fashion retailers, sometimes that's all people can afford. And
mm,
fashion and clothes that you feel comfortable in, clothes that you find trendy or pretty, isn't a luxury that should be reserved for the people that can afford to sustainably shop and have everything custom made from a designer by hand, slow made, which is one of the most sustainable options. I think that's a luxury that should be available to everyone. I think it's just being conscientious of your consumption and only partaking in trends that you truly feel that you like and will maybe wear for maybe not generations to come, but at least
yeah,
for that you'll enjoy for a longer period of time.
more than just a couple of weeks or one
Yeah.
season. Whenabouts are you actually going to be heading over to Miss Earth?
I leave November 9th.
Okay, so we got a little bit of time,
We
four
got a
weeks,
little bit of time.
5 weeks.
It's comforting to
Uh,
hear you describe it like that. Okay, we've got a little bit of time. It's not like, oh, we have a month. You're right, we do have a little bit of time.
I know it will go by probably super quickly. Um, how are you feeling? I mean, I don't know if you've traveled since the pandemic, but I was over in Texas a couple of months ago. That's the first time I traveled internationally since the pandemic, so in 3 years. How are you feeling getting to fly to the other side of the world in your case to compete in a pageant?
I'm not entirely sure that it feels real just yet. So right before I get on that plane, I will text you and I will let you know. But I actually haven't traveled much at all in my life. And so I haven't really been on a plane since the last time I went to visit Cuba again, which was maybe, I think I might have been 10 years old. And so I'll be hopping on a 40-hour flight to the Philippines naturally, do everything at once, 0 or 100.
Yes.
But I'm really, really excited. I also have a pretty long layover in Tokyo, and so I'm hoping that I'll get to explore some of that country as well. I couldn't feel more honored, more privileged to have this opportunity, and so I'm just excited to see how it goes, ready to take it as it comes and just try to make the best of the situation. And I think when I reframe things through that lens of
Mm,
just gratitude, everything becomes less stressful. If nothing else, this is an incredible once in a lifetime opportunity that I
yeah.
have been praying for and hoping I would have ever since I was little, watching these competitions on TV.
Well, I mean, the Philippines, if you're a pageant queen, that's the place to go because you're going to be treated as absolute royalty, whether you deserve it or not. The Filipinos will love you. Tokyo, well, Japan is about to come out of, they're about to accept people kind of again. They've been closed down for the longest time. So, are you actually like, do you have a night where you can spend in Tokyo, or are you just sort of passing through the airport?
It will be a night. I did try to avoid a long layover just because I was nervous, but I very quickly saw that that was not as economically feasible. And so then I was like, okay, of these layovers, which country would I like to see first? And Tokyo made the most sense with the way the flight
Hmm.
was split up. I was like, okay, this gives me a good chunk of time. So I will have an overnight layover in Tokyo, and I will be rushing to pack in as much sightseeing as I can.
Ask because I actually have a good friend she's in the Navy. She's an orthodontist in the American Navy, and she's based in Tokyo, based in Japan. I don't know Tokyo. She knows Japan back to front. So remind me when we get off this. I'll hook you up with her, and if she can't meet you because she's obviously got naval duties, then she'll be able to give you a list of things I'm sure too that you can blast through. Because if you're in Japan, it's only really just reopening, as I said, and it's a fascinating place to me culturally. So we'll make sure you get to fit in a few things rather than just sitting in your hotel by yourself.
That'd be incredible. Thank you so much, Adrian. I'll be sure to remind you.
Yeah. I like how you said economically feasible, which is another word for saying it's really, really
Oh,
expensive.
so expensive.
I like how you can use those words to sort of euphemisms. Um, let's you're heading over obviously soonish. What are you most excited for? Are you excited to meet the people? Are you excited just to head over there? You haven't traveled much before. What's the most? How are the emotions? What are you most excited for?
For sure. So, like I said, since I haven't gotten to travel much, what I'm most looking forward to, I would say, is meeting all of the girls and just improving my worldview. I think Cubans might know better than anyone how different a country may seem on paper or what you read on the internet versus what the reality is of what it's like to live there or what it's like to be from that country. And so I'm really looking forward to just learning from everyone that I meet and getting to know these incredible women and just the sisterhood and getting to know everyone and seeing what relationships spark.
Have you given any thought to, and I'm sure you have, but have you given any thought to how to represent Cuba itself? Because you've emigrated and obviously you spend most of your time in the US. So when it comes to representing Cuba versus representing the United States, I know a little bit about Cuban culture because I interviewed your predecessor, Cynthia, and I know a little bit about her. She's also based, I think, in Florida as well. What is Cuban culture? Because I feel that's not so well known, obviously, as let's say American culture, as an example.
Of course. So for me, although I immigrated here young, I was raised in a very Cuban household. So even in the home with my parents and with my family, I don't speak English with them at all. And that's one of the little ways that we keep the
Mm.
tradition alive. Every day, my mother would cook traditional Cuban food all day, every day, much to my mother's dismay. My father is blasting reggaeton, Pimenton, salsa, merengue, all throughout the house. That man loves music. And so for me, I have given a lot of thought of how I can most accurately represent Nuestra Isla Bella in my journey through here. And what I kept coming back to was support Cuban people,
Mm.
give Cuban artists a platform. And so all of my national costumes, the sponsors that I have worked with thus far and will be working with the exception of Jan, who has just onboarded on is onboarding on the team as a coach starting today actually. So all of the designers that worked on my costumes, every single one of them was Cuban. And it's been incredible to see this community kind of come together and rally behind me. Although we may be small in numbers, we are mighty at heart and we are going to miss Earth with everything that we have.
Is there a national costume section for Miss Earth?
Mhm.
Can't wait to see what you come up with. I know these are closely guarded secrets. I'm not going to even ask you, but yeah, that sounds incredible. All right. Well, Shayla, just before we get to the final 10 questions, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for supporting you?
Yes. First and foremost, my mom, my father, my abuela Aya, and my sister Jabeli, really my heart and soul. All four of them. You are so incredible, and I would not be the woman I am without you. To my director, Fatima, Christian Aguilar with Bea Bea Dresses, who has been absolutely instrumental and a lifesaver when it comes to finding these Cuban artists and helping me put together all of these ideas and making sure with me that I'm sitting down designing, and as we're designing and creating in this process, that everything that we do has meaning behind it and is going to be representative of Cuba and something that Cuban people can rally behind and feel proud of. Everyone who has supported me that I know in my life, and also everyone who is supporting me overseas and online that I haven't gotten the pleasure of meeting yet, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so, so much for giving me the platform I have.
Perfect. All right. Well, Sheyla, let's go through the final 10. This is as pageant-esque as we're going to get. First question, what is your favorite word?
Ooh. I'm going to go with kumquat because it appeared to me first, and so it must be true. It's coming from the heart.
Very unusual word. Number 2, what is your least favorite word?
Can't. The word can't. I think that is a leftover product of one of my very first swim coaches. That man was intense. If we ever said the word can't, we were made to sprint. We got like extra exercise handed to us. And so, and honestly, when I look at the word, it's just, we're too quick to use it. Before
Hmm.
we even try, before we give something everything we have, it's, oh, I can't. It's a cop out. And so I'd say that's my least favorite word, and I try not to use it.
I swear that must be like a sports coach thing because I used to do that to my girls when they were training. I remember one session, whenever they would say the word "I can't," I would make them run a lap, and you know what? It very quickly worked. I think I only had to send 1 or 2 of them running, and the rest of them would catch themselves. It must be a sports coach thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Passionate people. I love being around and working with others that just absolutely love what they do. I think life is too short to spend it on something that doesn't just fuel your fire and light your flame. And so I really hope that not only for myself, but for anyone that's watching, you find what gets you up in the morning and you let it keep you up at night. And you just
Mm.
pursue it to the fullest extent that you can, and you let that be your passion, you let that drive you.
Was what turns you on. Question 4 is what turns you off.
I think people who take themselves too seriously. And that's to that same vein of being passionate and finding things that you love and letting them just rule your life. To that same vein, things are gonna happen. I think we should take things in stride. I could sit here upset about any little inconvenience or about not having more time for myself,
Mm.
but just frame everything through the lens of gratitude. And I think life just becomes a very different picture and a much brighter picture. And so I think if we learn to laugh at ourselves, things just get that much better.
Question 5, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I kind of like this like tongue click noise where it's just sometimes if I call it buffering. If I can't think of something, I'm like halfway through a thought, I'm like, I kind of go, and that might be a Cuban thing. It might be like a little percussion, like a little music to kind of help the accents just rub together and make my thought. But I do that, and I think you know what, I might get it from my mom. I've noticed she does it too.
That's the sound I noise to make the chickens come to me. I'm fairly certain I'm not Cuban, but I feel like if you made that clicking sound, a lot of the animals that I have here would just start running up to you because that's the sound I use to get their attention.
You do it to make the animals come to you. I do it to make the
Yeah,
thoughts come to me. There we go.
yeah,
It works
perfect.
out.
Question 6, what sound or noise do you hate?
Mm, I guess like loud pitch screeching, which I guess everyone hates. Or actually, you know what? Car horns. Car horns, even though I know it's not personal, when someone honks at me on the highway, it hurts a
Yeah.
little bit.
Okay.
Deep down, it hurts a little bit.
Do you get honked often, or is this just a one, like once a week, once a month?
Right. I'm not great at driving. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm doing my best on the road. You know, I'm doing the best that I can. So when I hear that little honk, it's a little part of me dies.
When you say you're not great at driving, do you mean you drive slowly and cautiously, or you go the wrong way down one-way streets every now and then?
I like to high five curbs occasionally. For fun.
I've never heard that terminology before. That's perfect. I didn't run into the curb. I high-fived it with my wheels. That's perfect. Question 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Yeah, I think telekinesis. Either telekinesis or teleportation. I think both of them would just make life so much easier. They'd save you so much time.
Yep. Telekinesis would make you very lazy, though, don't you? Like, you just lie there and move things with your brain. Like, to make breakfast, you wouldn't get up, you'd just use your brain.
I feel like you'd just be so much more efficient because you can do multiple things at once. Assuming you're good with the superpower, because we could have superpower than just like be
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe don't drive the car with telekinesis. If you're going to high-five the curb, it'll just get worse with telekinesis. But yeah. Question 8. What job or occupation other than your own would you most like to attempt?
I think once this is all said and done and I officially retire from pageantry, I would love to use what I've learned in pageantry to be a pageant director myself. I would love to see, one of my dreams is to see Cuba represented on every international pageant stage that there is. And I really have high hopes that one day we'll be able to also get, in addition to Miss Earth Cuba, get a Miss Universe Cuba and a Miss World Cuba system going. And I would love to be at the forefront leading that charge.
Very nice. Question 9. What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Race car driver?
I can't imagine why. I mean, you give everything a go once, right?
Yeah. And once is the only time I'll be able to do it because I'll wreck that car and then like get her off the track.
Maybe start with go-karting and make your way up from there.
There we go.
Yeah.
That
there you go.
self-improvement, that constant self-improvement.
Exactly.
NASCAR level.
There you go. Setting our sights high. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I guess just I'm proud of you. Or you made a difference. Something to let me know that what I did during my time on Earth mattered. Even if it was to just one other person and it positively impacted them enough to make a change in their lives, I think that would make it all worth it.
Perfect. Well, Sheyla, that's about it. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Adrian.
And best of luck over in the Philippines. I will keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience, and we can also get you set up for Tokyo. Thanks to everyone for watching, whether it's live or on the replay, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open, so if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there and see you in the next video.